Welcome to the Qualitalks Podcast, a show about pharma and GMP. The pharmaceutical industry is a fascinating and complex field, and it takes countless people to bring a product to the market. In this podcast, we bring you some of the industry's brightest minds who will share their wisdom with you. And now, please welcome your host, Jan Kugel.
Welcome to the Qualitalks Podcast, the show where we cut through the noise to bring you practical insights on pharmaceutical quality and compliance. Did you know that packaging decisions made too late in development can cause costly stability failures and delay market entry? So today we are tackling a game changer, active packaging. I'm Jan Kugel, Managing Director at Qualitalks, and our guest is Badre Hammond, Global VP and General Manager at Aptar Active Material Science. For those unfamiliar, Aptar is a premier active material science solution expert that accelerates and de-risks the product development process and provides complete solutions that improve consumers' and patients' lives. From ensuring product stability and extended shelf life to customized end-to-end drug delivery systems. Badre brings over 20 years of experience driving innovation in pharmaceutical packaging and drug delivery. Together, we'll explore how involving packaging experts early can prevent degradation, control impurities, and streamline regulatory approvals worldwide. You'll hear why active packaging isn't just a final step, it's a strategic tool that impacts product performance from day one.
Hi, nice to see you, and thank you for the invitation. Interesting topic where we are seeing how the evolution of material science, active packaging intersect. So I'll say a little bit of a couple things about myself. My name is Badre Hammond. I'm a VP Commercial Operations for the Aptar Active Material Science solution. And my background really is, I start as a technical person. I'm a biochemist by training. I spent most of my career in doing drug development, drug delivery, and device. So I really felt and lived in the early stages of product development and creating formulations. So I struggled with maintaining formulation optimization and specification, and not only have to make sure the formulation works, but the delivery system as well has to be well established and robust from a proper patient experience point of view, and obviously therapeutic requirement. So I'm passionate about the space, and I look forward to the next session with you.
Yeah, that's really cool. And tell me a bit about your position at the moment, right? So you started from the researcher and R&D, and you have so much technical knowledge, and now you're doing VP of commercial operations at Aptar. So what does it involve to be in this position?
So in my role, my job is to make sure that I support the company to not only develop the right solutions for the market, but I make sure that the R&D portfolio is aligned with what the market needs. The regulatory strategy is also robust to meet the requirements. So not only do we have to provide the best possible active packaging and material science solution, but we have to make sure that it fits the demand and need for the market. So I'm responsible to kind of bring in that to the market, and obviously deploying it globally for our partners to solve some complex problems.
Right. And we wanted to talk today about active packaging, right? And is it a new solution? How long does it exist? How do you define it?
It's a good question. I think it's been around in different format over the years. I think packaging in general, in drug development or medical device, even biologics, I mean, it serves as a container closure system, and sometimes it provides a barrier into whatever system you're trying to manage. The active packaging kind of came about where it was trying to solve physical packaging barriers, weaknesses. Uh, a barrier package is solving one problem, which is making sure that things are not coming from the outside and affecting performance on the drug substance on the inside. What active packaging does, in general, is it creates an environment inside the headspace of the drug substance or medical device. And it creates this, what we call a microclimate inside the headspace to protect the drug product um, internally and also from the outside. So the active packaging plays a dual role, making sure that we are protecting the inside of the drug substance and the environment, but also making sure that things coming from the outside are not affecting performance. So really, the active packaging's evolution is almost kind of has to be, in sync with the barrier. The barrier has to be fairly robust for the active packaging to perform adequately. And that is where the innovation is happening in this space, and we can talk about that as well.
Right. So it's quite different from a normal packaging in a way. So it's part of the product, part of the way how it's been administered, right? So in comparison to other packaging, the normal one, the primary packaging, where it can come at a later stage of development, I guess here you already need to keep it in mind from the moment you develop drugs. So at which point do you already need to decide, okay, I need this type of active packaging. Do I need it at all? What is your perspective here?
And I think I think you touch on something that is very dear to my heart, because I think what the industry is, in my mind, is lacking is they are thinking about active packaging at the end of the formulation development. So a drug developer, I'll just talk about drug development as an example, but it applies to different therapeutic areas, different medical devices, biologic and others. So as a drug developer, you have essentially a recipe, a formulation you have to meet. You've got some sort of a plus or minus potency, efficacy that you have to meet. You have an assay, and you make sure when the drug is taken, you have to meet some sort of a specification. So that is the goal of the formulator. And then the formulator has to deal with, okay, in order for me to meet this therapeutic dose, I have to add certain stabilizers or enhancers to make sure that my formulation will be robust. So they do that, then they think about what kind of active packaging or packaging I'm going to use. The way we think about this value chain, we think it's important that the formulation development group is, to your point, is thinking about what can I use from active packaging or material science so that I don't have to live with some limitation on performance. Some companies, they add stabilizers, enhancers, excipient to maintain stability. Then they use the active packaging to kind of stay within that specs that they've established early. We think that the industry should pivot into thinking about, at the moment you're developing your formulation, you can account for, I have an oxidation challenge in my formulation. I should be thinking about adding an active packaging solution in my finished product so I don't have to compromise on my formulation. I'm going to address the oxidation in the package, but not after the fact. So that's really an interesting paradigm shift that we're seeing now, where we have companies coming to us, and I think the industry is actually waking up to this, where they're saying, I have this formulation, I know I have a known impurity or stability challenge, and I'm going to incorporate your material science into my design thinking so that I save time and not have to have this iterations going on between the packaging people, the formulators, the CMC. It could save a ton of time, and at the end of the day, provide patients a really robust therapeutic solutions.
Right. So, would you say that a lot of researchers are still oblivious to this option at the moment, or they are aware of it, but they're still, it's unclear to them at what stage they should start thinking about it?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there are some very brilliant, smart people on the drug side and the device side, and I think there are some silos between the formulators on the pharmaceutical company side, and then you have the packaging group. So the formulator, they finish the formulation, and then they hand it to the packaging people. The packaging people have to decide, okay, I'm going to use this particular barrier. They're not thinking that there is a better way. And I think our job, us and our colleagues in the industry, is to really begin to tell this story. Is that there is the days of having just a basic barrier packaging or the obvious kind of moisture scavengers that's been around for decades. Those are the innovation that happened now. There's so much more chemistry you can put into your material science that can really literally protect and keep like a control environment for the drug, that we're publishing papers, we're doing talks, we're having a podcast like this to make sure that we tell the world, the industry, that think about innovation in material science and active packaging that you can deploy into your design thinking in the early stages. Now, Trosamine, a good example. Companies are spending a lot of time and resources trying to buy the cleanest excipient, the cleanest enhancers to avoid impurities coming in. We think that there is a better way, which is incorporating material science active packaging to be able to really manage those impurities in the early stages and stays inside the package for the life of the product. So it's really us kind of telling the story, meeting with experts, and thinking about different ways to do that and engaging the market.
Right. And I'm curious, do those active packaging at the moment, are they standardized at the moment, or can you view them like a personalized medication, for example, where you customize it to the needs of the specific molecule to help it either protect it from impurities, from oxygen, from electrostatic effects, or whatever it is needed?
Yeah, I think the key word you said is customization of the material, active packaging material. Yes, I think not all drugs are created equal. Sometimes you can do too much. Sometimes you can add too much active packaging. You can dry the product. The product can be brittle. Sometimes some level of moisture is needed in a drug substance. So you have to be able to understand what is the current requirement of the drug product, and what is that kind of that goal, right? If I am trying to be within plus or minus X% of a particular efficacy, then our job on the material science and the active packaging space, our job is to be able to say, well, I'm going to calculate how much ingress or how much OTR, which is oxygen transmission rate, coming from the outside into your drug, into your package. I need to know what is your goal in terms of your specification, and I have to design chemistry into the material that is going to be able to be needed to not do harm, meaning not affect performance, but gives you the protection you need to meet your therapeutic dose. And this is something that unique about what we do. We don't have a set of materials that are made once and then you ship it. It's a chemistry that is bespoke for that given customer needs. So you have to do some R&D stability. You have to make sure you have the right chemistry, and you have to make sure that there's a partnership really with the drug developer to make sure we have the right material for the right therapeutic area. Some companies need a 36-month stability, right? So you have to be able to achieve that. Some need to be present in North America, in LATAM, in Southeast Asia, different zones of humidity and temperature. So you also have to create a window that can address these different markets for our partners. So I think those are the kind of things that customization is essential to be able to meet those variations that we often see in the space.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned global use of those packaging materials. So is there also an issue with regulations where, for example, in the USA, there are certain regulations for such packages. In China, there are in others. Then you have the climatic zones. So would you say then you need to find one solution for the drug that should work globally, or there are like differentiations between where you ship the drug?
Yeah, so I think there's certainly differentiations from a regulatory point of view. There are some things you can do with the US FDA sees drug development in a particular way or has some particular requirements. There are some related substances, what we call impurities, sometimes are accepted in some region, but other EMEA tend to be a little bit more less flexible about certain impurities in terms of the levels required. So you have to be able to create, this is to come back to your point about customization, you really have to be able to have the flexibility. Almost you create a formulation. When I use formulation for us is the material. We have to create a material that can be accepted in the US for US regulators and also for EMEA in the European Union and their regulations. And sometimes you might have two separate materials, active packaging for different regions. So it's really, there's not a one size fits all. Sometimes you are in the bottle delivering active packaging. Sometimes you're in a blister. Sometimes you are in an oil emulsion formulation. Sometimes you're in a unit dose versus multi-dose. So there's a lot of variations that forces really the industry, our market, to be able to deliver customized solution. I think that's sort of the future of can active packaging and material science reduce the burden that drug developer face to maintain a robust supply chain, a robust drug product, and deliver value for patients.
Mm-hmm. Right. And in terms of regulatory support, right? So you mentioned that manufacturers and developers, they need to have partners to support them from the beginning with the packaging. So when we are talking about regulatory aspects, right? So you need people who have good understanding of what's going on, which regulations are applicable in different zones. So is it something that companies like Aptar do from in-house, or those companies need to have also additional consultants that support them on the way?
Yeah, so regulatory in general, you can have the best expert in-house, but you cannot be an expert at all different things. So we see our relationship with our partners as we are an enabler. We are experts in our space, and it's not good enough, we believe, to deliver best-in-class material science and active packaging, but you also have to bring in the regulatory coverage, really, and provide that input for our partners. So when we work with companies, they are asking us and to be able to not only provide the material required, but also own the regulatory requirement of our solution. So what we do is we try to be prepared and have done that to be able to deliver end-to-end regulatory support for our own kind of specific material that is part of the end product and part of the submission. So we don't put the burden on our partners to be able to have their regulatory person figure out the regulatory strategy with our material? Is it adherent to a particular regulatory guidance? Does it have the full extractable requirement, testing, the robustness, all of that? We do all of that as part of really a value add for them, because we know that we're gonna be as good as we need to be to make sure that we deliver the finished product required. So we own that space, to answer the question directly on the regulatory front, by partnering with our customers, regulators, to be able to really jointly create the full package.
Okay. And in terms of practicality, does active packaging help companies also get the products quicker to the market, or does it involve with additional time that they need because they need more approvals, more testings, more customization? So would you say it's something that um, helps expedite the time to market, or does it slow it down but it has benefits? What's your take on it?
Well, I think I can give you an example. We had one customer that could only have a 12-month stability for their drug product. It was for a very patient population that was desperately in need to have that. So by the time you produce the product as the pharma company, you get it you produce it, you have to quarantine if you need to, supply chain. By the time you get to the patient, you've got 3 months left of use. And this was a global product. So we literally helped them have a product by going from a 12-month shelf life to a 36-month shelf life. And that's pretty powerful, because the investment they had to do with us, we developed a specific formulation for them, a material formulation. It paid for, in terms of resources, to be able to deliver a 36-month shelf life. So does it add time? We believe it actually saves time, because as I said earlier, this kind of paradigm shift, if you are thinking about your formulation and in your design thinking, you are incorporating material science potential use, you've probably shaved maybe a 2-year of development, because you're trying to meet your therapeutic dose given the existing solutions in front of you.
Right.
We're saying to the market, think about incorporating material science early, active packaging early, so you can actually dial in. If you say, I need a moisture and an oxygen together to be able to meet my therapeutic dose, I have to engage the active packaging and material science industry to be able to give that to me. So what I am thinking about its use in my overall formulation output. And that's really fundamentally different than the way things are today. The way things are today, you say, hey, I got a moisture challenge, an oxygen challenge, and I have to be between plus or minus X%. Then I'm going to just, when I'm done, I'm going to just pick a package that's going to do that for me. You have no way of knowing that it's going to work, right? Because you need to do stability, and then you need to see what the performance is going to be. We think that the early, the better. And we think that, to your point, that's going to save a lot of time. And as you know, a drug product that is delayed to launch by X number of months, those are very, very significant revenue losses if you don't do it on time and properly.
Got it. And what would you say is the point of no return where companies they do their R&D, and you mentioned that companies should start thinking about the packaging sooner than later, right? Instead of at the end of the process, they should already have it in mind when they begin the formulations. But let's say a company missed on it. They thought they didn't need it. Is there a point of no return from, let's say, regulatory submissions, or is there other areas where you say, okay, we can still pivot here and there?
Yeah. No, so the point of return, I don't think there is one. I think sometimes the delays, sometimes a financial decision has to be taken where you have a program and you have certain timelines, and you have to meet these timelines. You have investors, you have patients, more importantly, waiting for this product to go to market. So if you're delayed You can always reformulate. You can always go back and do things. But I think when a lot is dependent on that particular therapeutic area, we have programs in oncology and immunotherapy that delays are not. Sometimes it can kill the program. Sometimes leadership would say, "You've told me you can get this product approved in 5 to 7 years, and then you've been working on it for 10."
Right.
Maybe somebody can pull the plug on it. So I think there's not a point of no return, but there are decisions that are made based on a particular timelines and budget and et cetera. So you're competing with resources internally and externally. So we think that it's important to be an enabler part of the interactions with the industry. We think we're enabling technology as well. And one kind of broad something to kind of for your audience to keep in mind, there's packaging, there is active packaging, and there's the material science, sort of a level up active packaging. I'll talk a little bit about that if you like.
Yeah, sure.
So the packaging, that, as you know it, you are trying to, it's a container closure, right? You're just trying to keep something inside, right? Just protect it from being on the outside. Patients can open something, take the product. So that is packaging that when you go to an over-the-counter store, everything there is really playing a pure packaging role for the most part. And then there's active packaging where, yes, you're playing the role of a container closure system, but you are managing some requirement for the drug substance. You're trying to manage some impurity or limit, I should say, or prevent something happening. Okay, and that's typically moisture or oxygen. And then there's the material science where you actually take in materials, whether it's a film, whether it's an active bottle, whether it's kind of think of it a blown film that is active with some material science. That level of active packaging incorporates different chemistries inside the material. So there's all kinds of impurities, and the most common ones is moisture and oxygen. So that's, to me, you can solve that with active packaging in a robust way. But when you have complexity around different chemistries, like you're trying to avoid volatile organic compounds, you have formaldehyde problem, you have a combination of moisture and oxygen, so you have to put them together inside the material. And then you have nitrosamine, which is a big topic. We can probably have a whole podcast on it. About how do you solve that. And then you have some chemistry where you have to prevent the reaction from happening and not just absorbing whatever's in the environment. So I think the level of material science where you're deploying different chemistries to support proper performance, optimal performance for a drug substance, that is I would say the higher level of active packaging material science. That material science has to be deployed somewhere. Right, you can put the chemistry in the material, but it's got to be deployed somewhere. So that's the intersection between material science and packaging, where you develop the material science and you have to deploy it either in a bottle, a blister, a tray for a medical device or auto injector or a pre-filled syringe. So that's the kind of the way we operate. We have the materials, we have the chemistry, we have some experts that are developing chemistries that are put inside the polymer. And then we partner with the delivery systems or our companies, or we have our own deployment plans. Just wanted to kind of give you a clarification, because I think what the industry thinks, I've got a problem, I'm going to use an active packaging, I'm going to solve it. No, you need, sometimes you have an impurity causing chemistry that you have to prevent from happening. And then just an active packaging is not going to get it done, right? So you need that level of material science flexibility that's going to be important to have. So just maybe kind of level set a little bit about kind of a holistic view or how we see the market.
Have you seen various stability performance issues, case studies where you say, if there were using active materials that could have been resolved or avoided? Is it something that there is very common in the industry where you would say, from our studies and case studies, this could have been avoided in this product, or in this, it could have saved this research?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you an example of where nitrosamines right now.
Yeah.
Nitrosamine at high level is an impurity that is caused by having a particular API that has a molecular structure, amines, and when that particular API, not every API has the potential of nitrosamine, but some do, when they are exposed to some precursors. And one of the precursors is nitrite. It's a complicated topic, but at high level, if this nitrite exists at high level with your API, you risk of having these nitrosamine created, which is a potentially carcinogenic, and the FDA applied some daily intake level. If you exceed it, your product can be removed from the market. So the way we are approaching this this issue is that we're trying to do preventative work with our partners in the early stages. How do you make sure you prevent the creation or the limitations of the precursor so it does not happen? Because once it's packaged, it's a part of the environment, and you're going to have some exposure to these precursors, and you potentially will have a nitrosamine. So the only way you can have, in my mind, and I think in the way we think about it, the only way you can actually have some level of confidence that this could not happen once inside the package is to have something active along with the drug, for the ride, if you will. Because you could do all the formulation at day one, have it perfect, but then the precursors are in the environment, are in the packaging, just the basic packaging. Those precursors are with you, and the only way you can manage them, we think it's best that you have an active material inside the package that is creating a layer of protection. So we've had some partners that have had the product in the market, and then those impurities spiked up, and then they had to come back and then reformulate. So we think that prevention is key to answer your question. And yes, there were some cases where things had to be delayed, or launches had to be delayed because the levels were higher than what's required, and we had to go back along with them and try to solve that.
Right. And in terms of quality and GMP, right? So you finish with the formulations, right? At which point you already have to have the quality involved, the GMP experts involved to make sure that it complies with all the regulations. To think about the risk management, the critical points, the testing, the QC, and so on.
Yeah. So we believe in this principle, and I think medicine kind of believes in it as well. I think they were the creator of this principle, which is do no harm. Okay. So you don't want to reduce impurities, but then create a problem that's going to create some other impurity for the customer. So we really work really hard in the early stage when we develop these chemistries that can go into the package, into the material, to make sure that they are cleaner, that the level of impurities that we bring are not there. We make sure that the specifications that we deliver are robust and can meet regulators. So we try to not bring any additional challenges to the things that we're trying to solve by having a really rigorous quality system, a regular supply chain, trusted partners that give us the best possible raw materials. We engineer our own starting material, so we buy it raw, and then we do the engineering in-house. We don't buy finished product, anything. So we buy the raw material, we do the engineering, the particle sizing, the morphology, all those adjustments in-house, and we have a know-how around that. And then that gives us the best possible confidence available, is that we're not adding any new things to the system and potentially causing harm. So that's how we think about quality system, ensuring robustness, performance, and this is all done obviously under GMP conditions. And we've got a lot of products in the market that speaks to that, from an oral solid dose active packaging solution all the way to an implant that actually is inside patients, a pacemaker. So we internally we say hey, when we make these materials, it's at the end of the day, a patient is going to use it. So our burden, yes, we want to keep our customers happy, but at the end of the day, it's the patient at the end that's going to use the product. And we have millions of patients around the world using our product in partnership with our customers. So we take that very seriously. Obviously, the more assurances that we can provide to our customers, the better it is for patients. And we do a really strong patient experience, human factors evaluation to make sure that our materials can be handled and used from a patient experience point of view in a proper way. So yeah, we do quite a bit of that.
Got it. And right now, a lot is being done in terms of sustainability. Is it something that you think about also with active packaging? Is it something that is also on the mind? Does it have influence on sustainability when manufacturing the drugs?
For us, we think of it in a different way and maybe controversial, but we can talk about it at high level. We think of sustainability is the overall our ability to extend shelf life and make product available to more patients. So we think about the holistic way. If we are reducing waste by product not being discarded early, by making product more stable longer. I give you an example for probiotics as an example. Probiotics are, by their very nature, have live microorganisms. So these live microorganisms, they will lose efficacy and viability with temperature, RH, different environment, VOCs. So what companies have done, they would just add more microorganisms to be able to offset the death that happened for the cells. So you can see a sustainability impact there. You're adding more product to be able to meet your requirement. So what we think of that is that, well, we're going to deliver active packaging and material science, so you don't have to do that anymore. So whatever you started with in terms of your microorganisms are going to be there, plus or minus, at the end of that shelf life. So that we think of that as a sustainable solution. So that's kind of our pillar in terms of how we think about sustainability from that perspective. Less waste, more performing products, and then doing more with less. And then in terms of physical sustainability and recyclability and things like that, I think active packaging is under a lot of scrutiny. If you think about PFAS is a challenged industry that is observed now with Aptar, and our partners are trying to find ways to replace that. We are contributing to that space by working with partners that are delivering monomaterial blisters, as an example, where you can actually have the blister be fully recyclable, a blister card. EMEA is leading this effort. So we think, and we're actually going to publish something soon on this, we think that bringing material science and active packaging in these monomaterial blisters will be able to close the gap of performance. For example, these monomaterials have, they're not a strong barrier by definition because they're monomaterials. So you have a high ingress coming from the outside and impacting drug substance performance. But if you have an active material inside the package, you will kind of give life to that monomaterial packaging. And we are working with partners to try to demonstrate that. So that's one key aspect how we think about sustainability. And yes, some active packaging are not monomaterial. Some active packaging are going to have a recyclability challenge. So frankly, I think we can always do more there. There's a lot of effort being done to be able to kind of create less complexity in the process of recyclability by adding value, as I mentioned, with the monomaterial sustainable blisters. We're doing quite a bit on that. Mm-hmm. But also, I think we should not ignore the overall advantage we bring to the space by extending shelf life, by reducing waste, by impacting performance and by patients getting more out of the product than they otherwise would. So that, we think of it in a kind of very balanced way.
Mhm. Right, makes sense. So that's good to hear. And let me ask you then one question. If you could give the researchers, the leaders that are involved in deciding on packaging and the formulation, if you could give them one question that they should ask themselves as early as possible about their packaging strategy, what would it be?
Do it early. And I would say, go back to the paradigm shift is don't assume that when you finalize your formulation and with a packaging configuration at the end, don't assume that's going to work for you. Think about deciding on what role can active packaging and material science play in my overall formulation. We have this concept in our mind where we say, internally and externally, we say, so as a formulator, you have sort of your sort of standard kind of go-to components of formulation, kind of almost a recipe. We think that you should also add the active packaging material science as part of those recipes that you have to bring into your thinking. So don't wait until you've got a good feel of your formulation performance, and then you call your packaging person and say, hey, packaging person inside the company, I need thermoform, I need aluminum aloe package, and then and that package has to be able to survive with that drug, and vice versa. I think it's not the right way to do that. I think there's a better way to do that by thinking about it really early and making it part of your formulation development thinking. So my question, at least my challenge, perhaps, is to change the way you're thinking about that. We've had so many companies that have come to us after they got so far in, and they've done a 24-month stability, a 12-month stability, and then they found at the 10th month there is this impurity, or there is this impact, whatever they assume the spec, the packaging they chose failed them at that 10-month stability. Well, that is a very costly mistake, and I think there is a better way. So that would be my challenge to the industry.
Excellent. Great. So thank you very much for your insights on this fascinating topic. And it sounds very important thing that people should start thinking about as soon as possible, take advantage of newest technologies to make it happen. And so thank you very much again for coming to the show, having this chat with me, learned a lot from you, and hopefully it will bring a lot of value to our listeners as well. Thank you, Badre.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. I think these questions often are not asked enough. And I think with what you guys do is to be able to bring some different perspectives, sometimes perspectives that are not heard. And I appreciate you thinking about that and bringing this to your audience. So looking forward to perhaps doing more.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, and wish you all the best, and hopefully see you soon then.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Qualitalks Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star review. If you want to learn more about GMP, please visit us at www.qualistery.com. Stay compliant and see you at the next one.